Whoa. Hello. Oh. Hold on, I gotta fix this real quick. But hello. This is a bit of a different setup. As you may have noticed, I am away from home right now. So I gotta work with what I have with my current setup being the way it is. VTuber Studio wasn't working on me, but that's okay. I still got bits and pieces that I can work with. So it's not that big of a deal. Welcome those who might be lurking right now. It's gonna jump right into, that's very loud. Welcome, the goats up. Might be a little loud on my end. Let me check some settings. BGM. Them seagulls do be crying. Wow. Hi, Nemu. Oh yeah, I forgot to let some of the other people know on my other server, not my server, but a server that I am streaming, and I am doing the yearly tradition of streaming Umineko no naku koro ni and not finishing it because it's extremely long. But it does set the mood for the month of October. And I have played this game before, but that was like at least maybe a decade ago. In my old bedroom, I read this game the whole way through. It was extremely long but very enticing gameplay. And not to worry if you're confused with what's going on, there is, in fact, a little Let's Play I posted. And also, I don't think chat is showing up. Just give me a second. I am not at home, so I could be, it's probably why I am not at my usual setup, but that's okay. I'll have to use a backup. Just give me a second, chat. Either way. Ugh, how is everyone doing? Huh, how's everyone doing? Nice, cozy, October crisp air. I wonder if it's okay since chat's not showing up. I mean, some streamers, they do that. They just don't have chat in the corner of their streams. But if you're watching this on Twitch, you'd be totally fine. Just I do not have my setup with me currently. But that's okay. We'll make do with what we have. Anyway. I mean, I do see the thing, but it's like invisible to me. Wonder if I can make a quick adjustment before I really start. Give me a sec there, chat. Listen to the nice ambience. That is the sounds of a storm brewing. Hopefully it's not too loud, I can lower it. Okay, that did not work as I thought, but that's okay. We will push forward. Huh, so I thought that would work. I guess it didn't. Don't mind that, that was simply a test. Either way, atop was the courtyard. The courtyard of the mansion had been built strictly lifting the purpose, so it wasn't very elegantly placed. Because it was surrounded on all sides, the air was calm and completely undisturbed, even though they could hear the sounds of strong winds. It's only a gentle, sorrowful rain. So if I remember correctly where we left off, Canon died in the boiler room. And he was killed, supposedly by Beatrice. Though the cold, shattered raindrops, Battler dashed up the stairs and onto the courtyard where he looked in every direction. Of course, the odds of him finding a suspicious silhouette just standing around nonchalantly would be pretty much zero. Battler turned around in all directions. He turned again and again, kept spinning until he almost lost his sense of direction. He prayed that we'd only see the culprit somewhere in the scenery, but there was no chance. All he saw was spun was more and more of the mansion's heartless walls and windows. I might be blocking a little bit of it. Hold on, I gotta move myself just a tinge. There we go. I think I should change the overlay as well. Mostly because I don't want the tombstone to be in the way. There we go. Furthermore, those two entrances in the mansion and the courtyard, and neither of them were locked. Because the courtyard couldn't be entered from the outside, and the mansion doors had been built without locks. He couldn't tell which one they were that they had left though. Oh, he couldn't tell which one they had left through. He had to give up. Battler pondered the walls with his fist swearing. Batara-kun. So I'm debating whether I should even read the voices or not. It's gonna be a lot of extra reading. Battler put his head against the wall and he scratched at it in his fingernails as he cried. So many murders in the span of one night.
昔からいつも優しくしてくれる愉快なおばさんたちだったじゃねえかよ。カノン君とは昨日会ったばかりだが、きっとこれから仲良くなれたと思うぜ。なんで殺したんだ。どうして人ってのはな、殺しちまったらな、二度と生き返らねえんだぞ。
People die when they're killed. I know this is a visual novel, but I'm trying to ease on how much I read because it does get kind of draining after a while. Hence why I usually procrastinate a lot on this game, unless it's like the month of October. So I'm just trying to like not read the spoken dialogue. course, it'll be easier on the VOD because you can just, you know, pause and read for yourself.
タケノコみてえにひょいひょい生えてきちゃ来ねえんだぞ。どうして殺すんだよ。どうして
Balthar was a boy who could understand the feelings of pain and regret in a person's heart, so he cried with all his strength. Nazi had always thought of Balthar as a strong person, was a little surprised to find that he has his delicate side, and at the same time understood how easily hurt the heart of a young person could be, so she held him. It's alright.
あなたもジョージ君もマリアちゃんもジェシカも
大丈夫？
私は絶対に守ります。母として、そして後宮家の代表として。
Beth, after sobbing onto Nasi's chest for a while, wiped his tears with a bitter smile and tried to convey that he had cried more than enough already, just as he has done the times before.
とにかく一度下に戻りましょう。犯人を探すより自分たちの身を守る方が最優先です。明日になれば船が来る。そうすれば警察がやってきて全てを白日のもとにさらし出してくれるでしょう。犯人がどうあがこうともこの島から逃げられるものですか。
そうっすね。
そうっすね。It's gonna be 大丈夫バトラーさん。大丈夫ですか？ When the sea cats cry, a classic. Hello. Oh, I can't see the chat. You are just incredibly small. Now it's working. ちょっと待ってください. I am not in my usual setup, so it's gonna be a scuffed up kind of stream. Yeah. I am incredibly small, yes, aren't we all? There we go. Just be lucky I can stream at all, because I almost wasn't gonna bring my streaming equipment, but then I was allowed to, and then Adonis convinced me like, hey, you should stream while you're away again. I'm like, sure. If anything, it'll beat the boredom, you know? Where do I even put this? Here. So I'm basically using like my age-old laptop. This is like the laptop I first used to stream, so when I looked at my folders, it was like I can see my very first VTuber model in here. Oh, how times have changed since then. There we go. How I've grown. It's been so long. It almost feels like a dream. In a sense. But are we all still dreaming? Can we truly wake up? Right. You know, I could be playing Silent Hill because the same writer of Umineko made that, but you know, I don't have $70. I mean, I do, but I'm saving that for Pokemon. And it's like, I can't afford both. I am not a rich gamer. I'm not someone who's blessed with getting free codes. So I'll play Umineko. It's my punishment for not finishing it. Title drop. When the seagulls cry. The crime will be solved. When is he gonna remake Umineko is my question. Not like, doesn't have to be game wise, but I want it to be like anime wise, because when they adapted the anime, it was like really shitty. But for some reason, Bethler felt a slight sense of uneasiness as if the seagulls would never cry again. That couldn't be true. When the typhoon passes, the lively seagulls should return to the harbor again, right? Will they though? Also, how is volume? Is volume okay? If I need to raise anything, just let me know. Because I can hear pretty well on my end, but some parts of it, it's a little loud. It's okay? Okay. Okay. I returned to the boiler along with Ann Natsuki and told the room weekly that we hadn't found anything. They told me that Dr. Nanjo and Georgie Aniki had carried Canon to the servant room. The servant room had a first aid kit and a sink and could apparently function as a nurse's office. Kumasawa-san and Jessica had accompanied them. Should I just do like a weekly thing? Should I like really lock in and commit? Umineko's really long. Should I do like every other Friday or something? I just read Umineko until I am blessed with the shackles that comes off when I finish it in another 10 years. And then the shackles come back on when I want to play the sequel, because that one I haven't even played yet. And I really want to. Stains from Kanakun's blood remain on the floor. Judging by the large amount of blood loss and ruthless shape of the weapons that had fallen unceremoniously to the ground, I figured that Dr. Nanjo treatment would probably end in vain. The weapon had undoubtedly the same type that had been struck the Anti-Eva Uncle Hideyoshi's forehead. But wait, isn't the demonic design on the handle a little different? There seemed to be a small difference in that part. So as far as their overall shape is concerned, the weapons were all the same type. Though it would have seemed we had left the weapon stuck in Anti-Eva Uncle Hideyoshi to preserve the crime scene. So this was the first time I was able to have a perfect view of the entire weapon. Indeed, the weapon was not bladed like a knife, but shaped like an ice pick. Or, rather, a thin stake. And also had a spiral-shaped design, sort of like a drill. To use a disturbing analogy, it looked like something that might have driven to the heart of a human sacrifice in some demonic ritual. Including the handle that was about 25 centimeters long. Heaven, that was the stake-shaped part which was stained in the deep red blood. The length of the blood-stained part of it made it clear how deeply it must have been penetrated into Kano-kun's chest. But Aunt Natsuhi and the rest were not even looking at the weapons instead of standing in front of the incinerator where the horrible stench was emanating from. They had probably pulled that out of the furnace where it must have been burning. It was so smoldering and kept sending out dense waves of that awfully unpleasant smell. Genji-san and Maria were staring down at it. And Natsu probably couldn't stand to look directly at it. She kept shaking her head, her back to it. You know, I saw the folder, like the Umineko folder, and it says, like, I think it downloaded, like, back in 2017. I feel like it must have been sooner than that. But man, I remember reading this whole way through. Maybe I was, like, in early college at the time, like in my early 20s. It was definitely not the classic style. I just can't get past that. No offense to the original artist, but I just couldn't take it seriously with that little pudgy style. So I kind of prefer this revamp of it. Classic style with the funny hands. Yeah, I never played that version. Even though a lot of people probably had their starter of Umineko and Higurashi thanks to it. I thought that after everything that happened, nothing could surprise me anymore, but this was... Ugh. I stood there for a while, moaning with a rising urge to vomit. Vomit now! The true nature of that unearthly stench was a charred smell from within the incinerator. Of a burning corpse. The clothes, the surface of the body, and the hair were all hideously burned. That grotesque corpse was in a state of not the face, nor the age, not even the gender could be guessed at. But when I thought about it calmly, I realized that the corpse appearing at this time could only be one person. Grandfather, who had disappeared in the morning and whose whereabouts had been unknown.
おそらく
Oh no,
親方様だと思います。
Unc Barbecue.
私もこのようなお姿でお亡くなりになるとは。おいたわしや。
So I'm not sure yet. Maybe I'll save this for tomorrow, but if we still have time later today, maybe I'll stream a movie. No promises though. It might end up being tomorrow if we end up going a little, you know, if I get too tired talking, honestly. But we'll see. So I do have Uma Musume planned tomorrow, but that one I know is gonna be pretty short. So I figured, if not today, I can do it tomorrow, like after that. Sans Gucci, yeah.
でもこの死体本当にじい様だって保証はあるんすか？こうも黒焦げじゃ性別さえも想像つかないってのに。
Barbecue. Get the BBQ sauce, man.
バトラ君、足をご覧なさい。
Oh no. Charred feet. Nancy had her handkerchief over her mouth and her eyes averted, told me to look at the burnt corpse feet. Feet pics. Are they?
両足の指です。よくご覧になってください。
Yeah, but will they show it? Those toes on both feet, look closely.
本当だ。
Just as Genji-san has said, there are 6 toes on each foot. Each of those toes have been arranged so normally that I hadn't noticed.
親方様はお生まれの時から両足の指に特徴がございました。
He would probably have to wear like 2 times the size of his shoes, just for that extra digit to fit. The master had his uniquely characteristic toes since birth.
そして故に親方様は後ろ宮家の再興を託されたのです。
Consequently, the master was entrusted with the revival of the Yoshida-miya family.
後ろ宮家には昔から生まれつき多子症の方が多かったそうです。多分遺伝的なものでしょう。
Hereditary, that's another movie we should watch. Polydactyl literally means many fingers. Yeah, it's my favorite dinosaur. Because of a little mistake by God, when the person is born, one of those toes or fingers split into 2 and the total numbers increase. But a big deal isn't usually made of polydactyl in the world at large. That's because it isn't a disease, but something people are born with. So the hospital was already aware of it when they are still babies, and not about the time they turn 1 year old, they are given surgery to make them normal. But even if a child has polydactyl, it is treated before they become self-aware, so they might not even remember it themselves. Incidentally, it seems that it can occur with probability of about 1 in every 2,000 babies. So even though it's not usually seen, it isn't that rare at all. Speaking of which, I think Uncle Hideyoshi mentioned something to me long ago. Something about how even Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man who unified Japan at the end of the Sengoku period, possessed 6 fingers on one hand. According to Anatsu, he, along with the many Yoshida-miya family heads, the one praised most of their wisdom, was all possessed polydactyly. Because of that, when grandfather was born, his relatives were all excited at the thought that he become another wise leader. And when the leading relatives all died in the Great Kanto earthquake, it was apparently argued that if anyone could restore the family from that, it will be grandfather, because of the insuspicious sign of his birth. If grandfather thought being the head was not a bad gig, the sixth toe must have been pretty lucky for him. Come to think of it, I think I have heard of some country where it's believed that people with polydactyly should be treated as gods and revered. This is besides the point, but it's fairly common in mystery novels for a corpse to be burned to hide whose body it is. But it looks like grandfather's case was being toasted wasn't enough to hide the proof of his identity. Grandfather's body was not simply burned. Just like Auntie Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi in Canon 2, who would have been stabbed in the chest. He had one of those demon ice picks stuck to his forehead.
指に当主の指輪がありません。
The head's ring is not on his finger.
昨夜の手紙の通りということですか。お父様、さぞやご無念でしょう。
Natsu let her head droop and close her eyes tightly. Oh boy, don't you love family gatherings? Imagine a Thanksgiving dinner. I love Capico. This room has become a vitriol crime scene for us to hand over to the police. Oh, me too. They gave me such agita. So much so that I don't even go to family gatherings anymore. I haven't seen my extended family in a long ass time, and I kind of prefer to keep it that way. As morbid as it sounds. I don't know. I can't relate to any of them, so can you really blame me? Unless I'm just adjusting chat a bit. There we go. Wasn't clear when grandfather's corpse started burning in the incinerator. Since according to Genji, the flames hadn't been that strong, the body must have started burning a long time ago. Real, don't I know it. Since according to Genji, the flame has been that strong, the body has been stirring a long time ago, and that the stench must have slowly crept out the furnace and filled the room bit by bit, eventually pouring out and climbing up the staircase. Putting aside where he was rare or well done, grandfather had been brought out, killed, and burned even though he had started out in the locked room created by his auto lock. That's probably no doubting this. However, according to Genji-san, the boiler room is usually locked. The probability that someone outside our group was lurking around committing the crimes was now overwhelmingly high. And there was also a good chance that this person was walking around with something like a master key. After all, the doors and the windows throughout the mansion had been checked. But despite the culprit was free stuttering around the mansion. After this latest crime, we can now be sure that a 19th person exists. They haven't shown themselves once, and yet they're trying to tout their existence. Along with Kirei-san, the chessboard theory, I've been using this coordination to deny the existence of a 19th person. By flipping over the chessboard once more. The very fact that this crime makes it perfectly obvious that a 19th person exists means that the existence of a 19th person is even less possible. As long as a 19th person doesn't show themselves in front of us. If the culprit could get grandfather out through the door sealed by the receipt. If they could kill Auntie Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi from the other side, the door sealed by a chain. Then is it possible for them to create a fictional 19th person whose strange tricks and devices? If we still want to believe that the culprit is among us, then the list of suspects is very short. Guys, get Ryu's. I don't know who the guy's name is. Ryushiki. I'm probably butchering it. Get him to collab with Umineko and Among Us. I know Among Us is kind of dated now, but who gives a shit? Do it now. We need to get Umineko back on the spectrum, man. The four of us kids, Natsuhi, Genji-san, Kumasawa Bachan, Dr. Nanjo, One of those people has to be the culprit. Who is the sus one here? For real, yeah, it's been annoying me for decades, man. Umineko is so good, but only Higurashi gets all the, you know, the unique spin-offs, the remake, all that shit. And like, what does Umineko's gotten since then? I mean, it's got a sequel, but that was like decades ago too. Give me something new with this series, my god. Higurashi is just that favorite child. Wait, we can't be that sure that just a second ago we started doubting whether the corpse was actually grandfather's, right? Maybe we should try thinking of other bodies in the same way. For example, the first 6 all had their faces horribly destroyed. Some of the bodies had kept enough of their faces from us to confirm who they were, but my old bastard, for example, had lost its entire face as though it had been peeled off. We only figured out which body was which by their clothes and surroundings. Had the culprit prepared a fake body beforehand, disguised it to make it look like they had died, then hid somewhere to continue their killing spree. It sounds ridiculous, but that doesn't mean it's an impossible trick. It's too early to give this to the 19th person. No, this witch!
Maria ちゃん、それ以上しげしげと見てはなりません。
She just wants to poke the body. Just let her poke it.
さあ、バトラ君もカノンの容体も気になりますし、いつまでもこのようなところにはいられません。戻りましょう。
Maria hadn't gone out with everyone else, but had remained in the boiler room. The thing she was staring fixedly at was probably not grandfather's body, but the demon's ice pick that was sticking out of his forehead. No doubt an irresistible item for the obsessed. She just has autism. I rapped her on the head.
Oi, Maria.
Nase really should be stopped beating her child with vocal stimming.
ベアトリーチェの目的は何なんだ?
What's Beatrice after?
俺たち全員の命か?
Maria when witch mentioned neurons activate.
ベアトリーチェはもうすぐ蘇るんだよ。その時、誰も生き残れはしない。
よくも笑えるもんだぜ。自分だけ蚊帳の外だと思ってるのか？どうして自分の身に危機が迫っていると感じない？どうして怯えない？
ベアトリーチェは約束してくれたもん。私は黄金鏡へ連れて行ってもらえるんだよ。
Maria, please, there is no Disneyland in the Golden Land. You're being deceived.
そこはね、しがらみも何もない全ての人たちがずっと一緒にいつまでも優しくし合っていける素敵な場所なんだよ。私は楽しみだよ。その時はもうすぐだもん。
Just what kind of person is Maria? Maria, you've been playing too much Roblox and reading too much creepypasta. I only know what Maria was like 6 years ago. When she was 3. She had been pure and obedient, a good kid. This new Maria, 6 years after the Maria I knew, didn't seem to fit together. She's a Roblox and creepypasta kid. Shake my head. Just who is she, this witch who calls herself Maria? To her, with her obstinate beliefs in witches, the series of unsolvable crimes is proof that witches actually exist. Every time something occurs that would be difficult for a human, it becomes a little harder for the rest of us not to believe in what the witch called Beatrice. It must be an intense pleasure for Maria just to see her relatives, one who once firmly denied the witch's existence, start to acknowledge her existence one by one. Is this why she's in high spirits?
マリア。
Guys, do you think, since there was a, this is gonna date the stream, but since there was like a live birthing on Twitch, do you think I can do like a human sacrifice on Twitch? Would Twitch be okay with that? I mean, Twitch's rules are starting to wear pretty thin. Maybe I can summon a witch on stream. What do you mean, a live birthing? Yeah, there was a person giving a birth to a baby live on stream with 30,000 people. So I'm wondering, could I go the extra step? Could I do like a live human sacrifice on stream? That would be pretty cool. JK, maybe not, but you know, what if? What if? Hey man, the rules on Twitch are getting like very hard to follow suit with. What is and isn't allowed? Can I just do a human sacrifice? I want to summon Beatrice in my living room so I can see her feet. Is that so much to ask? All I have to do is just sacrifice one person. It's fine. It's Halloween. We can do occult stuff, right? Right? Anyway, we will have to sacrifice someone. Who wants to be my tier 5 stream? Tier 5 chat member. Who wants to volunteer? I'll send you to the promised land where there'll be Kani every day for you for the rest of your life. No strings attached. It'd be beautiful. I volunteer Tunka. Yeah, Tunka will be perfect. He can keep his fursuit on, it's fine. In fact, maybe I'll give him like a goat fursuit. Be perfect for the setting. Does he know goat sacrifice? Anyway.
もう一遍だけ聞く。どうせ答えは同じだろうが、もう一遍だけ聞く。お前は昨日マラ庭園で手紙をもらった。そいつは誰なんだ？
It was Beato-chan. Beato-sama?
Parents got me this new chair. It's like I temporarily use now, but it's kind of hard to adjust it because it's very small.
Oh. だからベアトリーチェ。バトラがまだ信じない。こう。
Mari only repeated what she had already said. Did I mo? I didn't catch myself. Did I mo? Maria had met with the 19th person, the witch. Had there really been a 19th person, or had that been one of the 18 who just told her say otherwise? All that's certain is that Maria has been with the rest of us constantly, has always had an alibi, hasn't done anything that would put her under suspicion. Unless she's simply overjoyed at being made Beatrice's messenger, and certainly is not our 19th person. I think. Beatrice is grooming the lolly. That much is true. That's right, I wonder what's written in the letter we picked up in Auntie Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi's room. And Natsu should still have it with her. In the end, Kanako did not regain consciousness. Man, Shota down. Even though Dr. Nanjo and the rest did all they could to heal him. There's very little that could be done on an island like this without medicine or proper faculties. However, Kanako was the only human ever to confront the culprit. If only he could have given us some kind of clue. But by the time he was carried here, it was already too late.
申し訳ありません。
My sincere apologies.
あのような重傷を設備のないところではどうしようも。
Without proper faculties, there was nothing I could do about such a serious wound.
いえ、無理もないことです。最善を尽くしてくださりありがとうございました。
Hey, since Vinny has been playing the new Silent Hill game, someone should introduce him to Higurashi or Umineko, and then he will be, persuaded by the peak early 2000 lolis. He knows about Umineko via the Steam Ham parody. Oh, right. Man, I wish... This is such a long game. I doubt he would ever play it, but I wish he could, commit to, If only. Dr. Nanjo's shirt has been sprayed by a violent spurt of blood, so it was easy to imagine that devotion in which he had tried to save Kano-kun's life up until the very last second. Jessica was crouching in the corridor crying in anguish. She had probably been taking care of Kano-kun until the moment of his death. George Aniki tried to reproach her with words of comfort, but when Jessica pushed him away, he stopped trying to interfere and left her alone.
私がカノンさんを一人で行かせなければ。
気に病むことはない。仮に一緒だったら熊沢も襲われていたかもしれん。それに愚かにも先走ったゆえの自業自得だ。
そんな言い方ってねえぜ。カノン君は犯人の姿を見つけて勇敢に立ち向かったんだ。熊沢さんも一緒だったら犯人は躊躇して逃げることを選んだかもしれない。
But she's no woman. What could she do? We don't even know what she's capable of yet. Emotion-filled words I never thought I'd hear from normally tactful Jessica tumbled out of her mouth. Hamasawa, looking truly sorry, could do nothing but hang her head.
ジェシカ。
Jessica.
今は言葉をかけるべきじゃない。僕だって。そしてバトラ君もだろう。もう何が何だかわからなくて心が張り裂けそうだよ。
There were tears in George Aniki's eyes again. Seeing Jessica break down crying probably brought back the pain of losing his parents. I had already cried myself dry, so I didn't want to cry anymore. However, I felt myself the pain in their hearts.
大丈夫だよ、ジェシカお姉ちゃん。カノンにだってまたすぐ会えるよ。
よしてくれよ。そういう慰めはいらねえぜ。
ベアトリーチェは死者も失った愛すらも蘇らせる。だからきっとすぐに会えるよ。そしてきっとみんなで穏やかに過ごせるから。
カノン君を殺したのがマリアに昨日手紙を渡したっていうベアトリーチェなのか。そいつはどこにいるんだよ。どこに隠れてるんだよ。私が見つけて引き裂いてやる。言えよ。知ってるんだろ犯人の正体を。お前は何を知っていて何を隠してるんだ。話しやがれ。
お嬢様、おやめください。
ベアトリーチェはいる。
My comfort character exists. Trust me.
ちくしょう。源氏さん話せよ。マリアが犯人を知ってる。しかもそいつは知ってて隠してるんだ。そして私たちの内情を伝えて殺しの手引きをしてるに違いないんだぜ。
ジェシカ、静かにしなさい。
Jessica rushed at Maria and grabbed hold of her. Genji tried to stop her, but Jessica could not be calmed. The next thing I heard was the sound of a Nazi slapping Jessica's face. After that, only Jessica's sorrowful sobbing voice resounded throughout the hall.
マリアちゃん、僕は君が断じて犯人ではないことを知っている。
But it's always the one that you least suspect.
君はいつも僕たちと一緒にいたし、犯人なんかと通じている時間はなかった。だから聞かせてほしい。君に昨日手紙を渡したベアトリーチェとは誰なんだい？
Although those words seemed kind, they clearly showed that George still had doubts about Maria. He had entangled Maria. However, he felt exactly the same way Jessica did.
兄貴、同じことは俺もさっき聞いたぜ。返事は同じさ。
マリアちゃんの口から聞きたい。ベアトリーチェとは誰なんだい？
He's my comfort character. 言ってもどうせ信じない。
それはどういう意味だい？ひょっとして僕らのよく知る人物が犯人で。君は何かの事情からそれをかばうために黙っているというのかい？君はあの手紙を誰にもらったんだい？
ベアトリーチェにもらったんだよ。何度だって言う。手紙はベアトリーチェにもらった。ジョージお兄ちゃんがベアトリーチェを信じないのは殴れる相手じゃないから。ジョージお兄ちゃんはやるせない気持ちを暴力に変えて誰かにぶつけたいと思っている。だから殴れる相手が人間じゃなきゃ収まりがつかない。だからそんなジョージお兄ちゃんには真実を話しても受け入れられない。だから言っても無駄。信じない。でもマリアは何度も言うよ。真実だから言うよ。ベアトリーチェはね、いるの。黄金鏡の扉はもうすぐ開かれるよ。マリアはそこに行くの。ベアトリーチェが約束してくれたの。その世界ではママも優しくてパパも一緒で優しいの。マリアは早くそこへ行きたいの。みんなはベアトリーチェのことを恐れている。そしてそれは無理もないことだけど、なら安心して。ベアトリーチェは言ってたよ。
Source, dude, trust me.
台風が去るまでに全てを終わらせるからって。
Punch.
饒舌なマリアも嫌いじゃねえが、とりあえずはそのくらいにしとけ。魔女はいるいる言ってたお前にとってさぞや現状は愉快だろうが、
I wanna
とりあえ
buy.
ずそいつはお前だけで噛み締めとけ。
I wanna buy a similar crown, wear it on my head.
他人にまで押し付けるんじゃねえ。
If only I can find where it is. Something similar. Maybe I can make it myself, but it won't be as good.
こいつ前から気持ち悪いやつだと思ってたけど、おかしいぜ。どっかおかしいぜ。バトラは思わねえのかよ。ケンジさんは、熊沢さんは、母さんはどうだよ。マリアは犯人の正体を知ってて隠してる。確かに直接手を下してるわけじゃないかもしれない。でも間違いなく犯人の一味だぜ。そうさ、スパイさ。私たちと一緒になんかいさせられないぜ。
マリアちゃん、不謹慎な話を慎むべき時もあることを知りなさい。これ以上混乱に油を注ぐような真似が過ぎれば、おばさんも本気で怒ります。
Just being a little gremlin, man. She doesn't understand context cues. Now, Nasi glared at Maria with frightening eyes. Mari was used to Auntie Rosa's loud style of scolding, but she apparently hadn't developed the resistance to this kind of silent telling off. She shrugged and kept her mouth shut. A desolate feeling filled the room. It felt as though things would have get more complicated if anyone spoke. However, how many people had already died? 6 in Dad's group, also plus Auntie Eva, Uncle Kiyoshi, Kanon-kun, and Grandfather. There was a whole 18 people on this island. 10 of those had been killed. More than half of us had been killed. And at this stage, there was absolutely no guarantee that the remaining 8 was going to be alright.
とにかく今は仲違いをしている時ではありません。
Anyway, now is not the time for discord.
犯人が神出鬼没に屋敷内を出入りしていることが間違いなくなった今、
Now they were certain that the killer can enter and leave the mansion at will and strike out of nowhere.
私たちは明日まで身を守ることだけに専念しなくてはなりません。
夏日おばさんに極めて同感だぜ。犯人探しは今夜ゆっくりできるさ。今はどこで籠城するかを考えた方がいい。
As I said this, I pointed at the clock to everyone. It was already 8 at night. It had been receiving shocks over and over since the early morning, and both our bodies and minds were completely tired out. There was still a long, long time until tomorrow. We need to find some place to barricade ourselves and somewhere we could rest our bodies and feel even the slightest bit of safe.
私も同感ですが、私も含めもうみんな体も心も限界まで打ちのめされています。今からそれを考えた方が賢明でしょうな。
そういうこった。敵はマスターキーに準ずるものを持っている公算が高い。
シャノンやカノン君、ゴーダさんはマスターキーを持ってましたか？
はい。
Excuse me 1 second, I'm gonna get a tissue. Tissue had been obtained. Anyway.
勤務時間中だったなら身につけていたはずです。
現場をいじらない方がいいってんで、そこまでは調べなかったのが、誰かの鍵が奪われている可能性は否定できねえな。
そもそも犯人はバラ庭園倉庫のシャッターを開けるために一度使用人室を訪れている可能性があります。そこでマスターキーをすでに入手していると考えて間違いないでしょう。
There are many servants serving the Shiyamiya family. Because of that, there were several master keys. Furthermore, every time the shift changes, the keys have been passed between servants. She had to admit that the arrangement had been somewhat sloppy.
仮に殺された使用人の誰かのポケットから鍵束を拝借したとして、その鍵でも開けられない安全な場所はあるのか？
私たちはお仕事の都合上、すべてのお部屋の鍵を預かっております。お屋敷もゲストハウスもすべてです。
つまり私たちはどこへ立てこもって鍵をかけようと意味がないってわけだ。上等だぜ。鍵なんかいるもんか。来るなら来やがれってんだ。返り討ちにしてやるぜ。
敵は正面から来ないよ。最初の6人はともかく母さんたちやカノン君、 そしておじい様の霊を見る限り、敵は孤立した人間だけを狙ってる。一部屋に固まっている僕たちのところへ堂々と乗り込んでこられるほどの力はないんだよ。
そうだな、兄貴の言う通りだ。ひょっとするとおばさんのライフル銃が抑止効果として成立してるのかもしれないぜ。
なら良いのですが。
マリア、言いたいことがあるんだろうが、そいつは飲み込んでしばらく黙ってろ。
Yeah, go watch Bluey or something. Maria probably want to say that witches weren't afraid of things like guns or something like that. But if she were to say it out loud, the atmosphere around here would start to get pretty edgy. I didn't notice and decided to put a stop to it.
よろしいでしょうか。
If I may.
一箇所だけ使用人の鍵束でも入れない場所が。
それはどこです？
はい、親方様の書斎です。
Yeah, I figured.
私は反対だぜ。じい様の気持ち悪い部屋になんか入りたくない。
あの部屋に入れる鍵は何本あるんですか
2本です。1本は常に私が、もう1本は親方様がお持ちでしたが、先ほどボイラー室の遺体からこれを。
Genshi took a handkerchief out of his pocket and opened and showed us the burnt and filthy key to his study. Then he showed it alongside with his own key, which had only lent to Ann Natsuhi.
本来なら警察のために鍵も残すべきだったのですが、親方様より書斎の留守は必ず守るようにと仰せつけられておりましたもので。
なるほど。
なるほど。
ということは金蔵さんの書斎は唯一の安全地帯というわけですな。
But is it really enough security, knowing witches can use magic and
そういうことになりますね。
it bypassed literally any lock.
あの怪しげな匂いの部屋に一晩も立てこもるなど考えたくもありませんが、あの部屋が一番安全であることを今は認めなければならないようです。
Hey, it may not smell as good as a Bath and Body Works, but it's still better than nothing.
その安全な部屋に閉じこもってたじい様を犯人は連れ出して殺してる。
Unless he was lured out.
絶対安全とは言い切れねえけどな。
バトラ君の説のおじい様がうまくレシートをやり過ごして自分の意思で部屋を出たと考えるなら、籠城の価値はあるかもしれない。
楽観的すぎだぜ、兄貴。
However, at the same time, I thought he brought up a pretty interesting point. After this gives me a chance to question the enemy, the witch herself, about how the sealed room has been opened. If we assume that the culprit had used some technique to abduct grandfather from his study, then why would he have showed us the same trick again if they wanted to assault us in the study? It's an opportunity to force the culprit to demonstrate the trick right before our eyes. If they were a real witch, we could have forced them to say, "Open sesame," and open the door by magic right in front of us. But such a thing is probably impossible. If you flip over the chessboard, you realize that the culprit is obviously just trying to act like they're a witch. If they really were a witch, all they have to do is appear in front of us and show us a little spell colorful enough to silence all of our doubts. Since they're avoiding doing that, everything must have been work of fake witch who wants us to think otherwise. Therefore, a culprit who has used a technique other than magic to defeat the locked room couldn't open the door before her eyes.
じいさんの部屋ってのは8人で押しかけても大丈夫なくらいの広さなんすか？
はい、ベッドにソファー、毛布類もありますので、贅沢を言わなければ十分に夜を越すことができます。流しにご不浄、冷蔵庫に酒棚もあります。
Liquor.
ひゅー、そいつはすげえぜ。
Whoa, that's incredible, bro.
しかしおかしなもんだな。自分の家の中にさらに自分の家を作ったってのか？島を丸ごと買って自分の夢を全て実現しきったじい様の最後の家にしちゃ随分手狭なんだな。
そうですね。いつの頃からかお父様にとっては屋敷内ですら心を許せる場所ではなくなってしまったのでしょう。
そこに引きこもっていたのを私たちは嘲笑い、そして今度は私たちがそこに立てこもろうってわけだ。
Ironic. Jessica spat the words out.
ジェシカちゃんは立てこもるより犯人を探しに行きたいという感じだね。
But it's for your own safety.
もちろんこっちから探しに行って見つけられるなんて思っちゃいないぜ。結局は待つしかない。ならどこで待ったって同じだろ。逃げも隠れもしない。客までテレビでも見ながらのんびり現れるのを待とうじゃねえかよ、ベアトリーチェ様をよ。
現れなければ現れないで十分です。犯人を暴くのは私たちである必要がないからです。
正論ですな。警察が来るまで危険を冒すべきではありません。
ありがとう、南條先生。
Off topic, but I will say it's actually a little helpful that I'm not reading the spoken dialogue. That way I can rest in between moments of this visual novel. Because my god, my voice would get so stressed just reading all this. I know that's not a big deal for most people, but still. It's nice to just have a break in between, you know.
私はお父様の書斎に移るべきだと思います。確かにお父様が連れ出された可能性があり、絶対の安全が保証されているわけではない。しかしバトラ君の推理のお父様が何らかの方法で自ら書斎を出て外で襲われた可能性も否定できません。
That crazy theory had just been what I came up with to stop the argument. However, just as Auntie Eva had said, even though that trick would work, I can't begin to explain what motive could have made Grandfather do something so awkward to sneak around in his own study. Plus the trick of hiding under the bed and waiting for the receipt to be removed before escaping couldn't have been used unless Grandfather had known that the receipt was wedged on the door. Auntie Eva hadn't pointed out that last part, but it's clear how absurd that theory was. Does that mean that Auntie Eva claimed the door was sealed and it was a locked room? It is doubtless fact that Aunt Nancy was the culprit and that the room was a locked room. If Auntie were here now, she would have probably made the claim openly and do me the favor of blowing my strange theory away. But anyway, I had to admit that a room with both a bed and a toilet and all 8 people could be shut up in, and with only 2 keys, both of which were gathered here, had to be the safest place in the mansion right now. At the very least, I figured this would be better than shutting ourselves in the parlor again and saying nothing went wrong or we were in there before. No, wait. Were we safe only because we were shut up in the parlor? What if leaving that room and moved on to an unexplored location is actually more dangerous? And no good, no goddamn good at all. My flimsy head is all about to break out in a fever. As I keep flipping over the chessboard to real and inverse keep switching with each other over and over, and I lose my ability to believe anything. When it seems like the culprit is one of the 18 that wants to believe in Beatrice. And once I started believing in Beatrice, I started wanting to find the culprit and admit the 18. That keeps spinning around forever, and in the end, my thoughts haven't taken one step more they were started. How far back the past was it that Kiri taught me this chessboard way of thinking? The concept of examining the situation by flipping it over and thinking from the enemy side. I get the feeling that I was interested in that way thinking at the time that I let it guide the way I thought about everything. By the way, Kiri-san was Dad's co-worker back then. I hadn't dreamed that that day would come where she would be added to our family. Didn't Kiri-san tell me something? I get the feeling that she once said that while this chessboard thinking was one way to look at things, it wasn't all-powerful by any means. And in fact, was actually bad to rely on too much.
チェス盤思考ってのはね、昔本で読んだゲーム理論というものを私なりに解釈したものよ。とても面白い学問だから、バトラ君も大学に入ったら挑戦してみるといいわよ。
ぜひやってみたいっす。それを勉強してチェス盤思考をもっと鍛えたら、どんな相手の手の内も読めるみたいで楽しいじゃないっすか。
でもね、盲信しちゃダメよ。ゲーム理論は非常に奥深く複雑な学問なの。チェス盤思考はその上辺だけを私なりに解釈した考え方に過ぎない。バトラ君が想像するほどに相手の手の内を読み切るには相当の勉強が必要よ。
Bear me for just 1 second. Okay, back to family murder.
しかもチェス盤理論は応用の利く便利なものではあっても完璧ではない。便利ではあっても弱点が多い。
Yeah, he has really hot aunts. Very mentally unstable. Except she's pretty well put together. Everyone else not so much, but they were hot.
弱点？
ええ。チェス盤思考の基礎はゲーム理論。ゲーム理論は突き詰めると数学に行き着くの。数学の弱点は何か知ってる？ノイズよ。
In math, when you write 1 plus 1 equals 2, that equation will always be 1 plus 1 equals 2 no matter how many billions of years pass. Nothing more, nothing less. That's because there are absolutely no noise mixed in. But for example, unlike math, the Japanese language has noise mixed in. Kanji has a good example. Old kanji and new kanji are slightly different, which represents an introduction of noise created by change over the ages. Isn't history the same? There are dozens of policies that seem foolish in the modern era, but were meaningful at some point in the past. But because the rules of chess are fixed when a pair of experts are discussing one particular position, it is possible that they could reach the same conclusion whether they're from 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future. However, if the rules of chess had gone through massive changes over time, it's possible that the discussion about the same position would have changed as well.
その通り。 人の世の事象は本来ノイズだらけなのよ。人の感情だってそうでしょ。全く同じことが起こったからといって人は必ず決められた反応を示すとは限らない。それを数学の理論で当てはめ相手の行動を読もうとする時点ですでに理論には弱点と限界があることを知らなければならない。手っ取り早く言うとチェス盤思考はノイズや気まぐれ、そして誤解、認識ミスに非常に弱いの。
That's right. Hide-san definitely said that. In the first place, chess is a game where both sides play by the same rules and fight within the same objective, namely victory. And this is why it's possible for both sides to predict the other's moves. It is possible to read an opponent because you can always suppose that they will advance with the best moves they can find. But what if the opponent is fickle or a little tired and makes a move that can hardly be called the best? Or maybe, what if the game actually has special rules? Only the enemy knows them, and they can make us of something unknown to you. In fact, what if the opponent actually has some goal other than victory? Think from your enemy's perspective. That is the basis of chessboard thinking. Which means that, if you misunderstood your enemy, any and all the answers that you draw for the process will be complete rubbish. None of use at all. At times I thought that by using chessboard thinking I had gotten a glimpse into the person behind those crimes. However, I didn't know anything about the culprit, and I'm just playing in a labyrinth of thought. If Kiri-san were here at a time like this, she'd probably be able to notice something with her much, much sharper thinking ability. Jessica never warmed to the idea of moving to grandfather's study, but in the end, Natsu persisted and we decided to move there. Everyone was already trapped by paranoia. Kumasawa's son had prepared dinner once already, but after the incident involving George Aniki's parents, the kitchen and the parlor had become temporarily devoid of people. Someone said that it might have been poisoned at that time. Because of that, we were unable to even touch the food that Kumasawa had taken the trouble to make for us. The manner in which the first 6 people have been killed is still unknown, but there was a possibility that it was poison. And indeed, by the method, even a single person would be able to carry out the murder of 6 fully grown adults. Furthermore, this idea made it seem like there was only a single culprit who was already afraid of Annatsu's rifle, and this was very good for our emotional stability. But the fatigue and hunger was even harsher than we had imagined. So on, Kumasawa-san suggested we all went along together in the kitchen and gathered some canned food which would have been hard to poison to take it in with us. Although Kumasawa-san's efforts to reward us with at least a nice dinner on this savage day regrettably came to nothing, the food piled up in a serving cart which looked a little sad. We all started climbing the stairs, and Natsu led the group, warily staring into the darkness with both eyes and the barrel on the gun. We arrived at the 3rd floor, just as Natsuhi had warned us beforehand. There was a mixture of chemical smell and sickly sweet aroma, a stench hanging in the air that felt like it was eating into our heads.
なるほど。こりゃ一晩もこもったら頭痛にでもなりそうな匂いだな。
Yeah, this kind of stench probably would give you a headache if you were shut in for a whole night.
今更ながら、じいさまの書斎に反対したジェシカに賛成だぜ。
Probably gives me the impression that's like one of those Asian medicinal shops. I sometimes pass by them, and they would give off like a really strong stench. Maybe something like that. I'm just assuming. This exceptionally magnificent door felt like a source of the stench. So this was the door of the forbidden study which had turned away all who visited. While Genji-san was locking the door, Mari was staring at the doorknob with great interest.
すごいドア。
古くいかめしくて冗談の通じなさそうな。 いかにもじい様の書斎にふさわしい扉だよな。
霊的な悪意を退ける力がとても強く込められている。多分ベアトリーチェはこの扉を開けられないね。
お？それどういうことだよ。
Ah, the scorpion. A scorpion crest. No, a design like a magic circle or range around the scorpion was inscribed there. This design, that's right. Isn't this just like the doorknob charm that Maria gave Jessica and me yesterday?
火星の5の魔法陣は強力な魔除け。
The fifth magic circle of Mars is a strong magic repellent.
しかもこの魔法陣は相当丹念に作られていて力がよく満ちている。魔の者であるベアトリーチェにとってこの魔法陣はとても厄介だろうね。
それは心強いじゃねえか。この部屋ならベアトリーチェのマッシュから逃げられるってことだろ。
How about Detective Ludwig? We're solving a family murder.
うちの魔女様は実に頼もしいぜ。
ならベアトリーチェはどうやって中のおじい様を？
He lured her. No, she lured him out with feet picks.
バトラが推理した通りだよ。ベアトリーチェは中に入れない。でも彼女には魔法があるし使い魔だっている。それらを使っておじい様が自分から書斎を出てくるように仕向けることはできるかも。
ああ、漫画で読んだな。吸血鬼は十字架が怖くて近づけねえけど、使い魔たちはへっちゃらなんで使い魔に襲わせるみたいなシーンを読んだことがあるぜ。
バトラたちに昨日あげたサソリのキーホルダーのようなお守りもこの火星の5の魔法陣だよ。込められている力は微々たるものだけど、この島を出るまでの間を守ってくれるだけなら十分だった。なくしちゃったそうだけどね。
サソリのキーホルダーのお守り？
ああ、昨日私が母さんに渡したお守りはマリアにもらったものだったんだよ。ドアノブにかけると魔除けになるとか言われて、私より母さんの方がいいかなって。
そうでしたか。ジェシカにしては変わったものを持っていると思っていました。
夏日おばさんがあれをドアノブに？
ええ、夕べそう聞き、寝る前に扉の内側のドアノブにかけました。
なら夏日おばさんはとても幸運だよ。そうだったなら夕べベアトリーチェは夏日おばさんに指一本触れられなかっただろうね。ベアトリーチェはさぞや悔しがったと思うよ。
Beatrice annoyed. Couldn't lay one finger. Nancy thought back on the airy graffiti that she in the morning, like someone had been tearing at the outside of her door with a blood-soaked hand, and gasped in surprise. We need to put her inside a tiny box. Yes. Could it be that this witch who called herself Beatrice had tried to enter through the door to her very own room? But the magic repelling charm had been hanging from the outside, so she couldn't break through the door. So she was annoyed. So she scratched at it.
よせよ、そういう話。魔女なんかいないぜ。いるのは犯人。
But what if the killer is the witch? Then that just contradicts each other.
それも私たちと同じ人間だ。それを確かめる必要があるってなら、八つ先にして血が赤いかも確認してやろうじゃねえか。よくもカノン君を。
Tirik. Genji unlocked the door. The 8 enter Kinzo's study. Time to heighten their psychosis. Grandfather's study. I heard rumors about beforehand, so it didn't surprise me all that much. He had done nothing more than fortify us through with his occult hobbies. If grandfather's hobby had been chasing after pop idols, these walls might have been buried beneath idol posters. Even if I didn't understand it, I didn't realize that this room was an amalgamation of all things he enjoyed. Where's the anime figures and where's Beatrice in the jar? Even so, I couldn't help but remain dumbfounded by the smell of this creepy medicine and the sweet stench that steamed to melt my head. When the door closed, it automatically made a clunk. I see. This is the auto lock that is activated whenever a door is closed. And there were only 2 keys which could open this door from the outside, but of which we're in this room. In other words, this room had become a locked room. The shutter, the receipt, the chain, and now the auto lock. This 4th door had been locked in the most magnificent fashion yet, constructing a locked room in the perfect form that none could argue with. Just to make absolute sure that this room was secured, we checked all over ways in or out. The windows were tightly locked. It should have been enough, but just in case, we tried knocking all over the walls. After all, there had been whispers that there might be a hidden door in this room. We couldn't find anything suspicious. Grandfather's study was very large. Even though he called it a study, it wasn't really a single room. It could have divided up into 4 basic sections: a study section, a bedroom section, a toilet, a bath section, and a section for cooking that had a sink. I see. The study does have enough in it to live in. It's like a studio apartment. Now I can understand how grandfather could live in his whole life in his room without ever leaving. Ah, that's the life I want. It seemed that grandfather wasn't in the habit of watching TV. There was no television in this room, nor even a radio. Okay, never mind. Man, not even a computer? You can't even play Fortnite? Not even play Umineko? Come on. Until tomorrow morning, there was nothing. There would be nothing for us to do but pass the time listening to the sound of rain and inhaling that stench. Dr. Nanjo gazed at the chessboard that sat on the table in front of the sofa and muttered. It was apparently a partly finished chess game that had been played with the grandfather until yesterday. The black had the white pretty well cornered, and it looked like a checkmate would be reached within a few moves, and the end of the game. Even though the checkmate had almost been reached, the endgame had been rushed, and the end, it was never completed.
Kinzo-san.
Kinzo-san.
やはりこの勝負は決着がつきませんでしたな。
南條先生。
わしは長く金蔵さんの友人だったが、金蔵さんのことを知っているのは半分だけでしかなかった。金蔵さんにはいつも聡明な金蔵さんと何かの狂気にとらわれた金蔵さんの2人が同居していたように思う。わしは金蔵さんのことを何も理解してはおらんか。
特にベアトリーチェ様のことになると人が変わったようでしたっけね。
He became a simp. I was never the same since. In the direction of Kumasawa-san's upward gaze, a portrait of Beatrice could be seen. It was a mask like the like the one hanging in the entrance hall, but small, made for this room. Grandfather probably spent every day in this room and so much of his time talking to the witch in that portrait. Who was Beatrice's grandfather in the first place? But now you couldn't just explain her away by saying she was a story made by the parents of a frightened children away from wandering into the forest. While eating the canned food we had brought from the kitchen, we talked together about who Beatrice was. Whether the culprit was Beatrice herself or someone pretending to be her. Whether they were a witch or a human, the lady in this portrait was strongly related to the bias and the background of these crimes. We couldn't talk about them without talking about her.
そうだ。
Oh yeah.
母さん、エヴァおばさんたちの部屋で犯人の手紙を拾ったんでしょ？
Oh yeah.
ええ、まだ開けていませんでしたね。
Open it.
開けてみましょう。
It could be a smash invite. And as he took out the Western-style envelope, Genji-san pulled the letter opener out of a drawer in the study desk and handed it to her. While watching her open it, George Aniki grimaced slightly. After all, it was a letter left at the site where his parents had been murdered, and there was a good chance that its contents would say something unbearable to Aniki. It must be a calling card. It seemed that Anatsuhi also realized that, so she glanced over to the contents first without reading it aloud. We were a little frightened that she might grimace after reading something shocking, but she just frowned unhappily.
内容は何と？
What does it say?
不愉快な一文があります。私たちを挑発するつもりなのでしょう。
Anatsuhi, after deciding that the contents could be shown to the children, set it openly on the table. Everyone stared at the same time.
我が名をたたえよ。
Praise my name.
なんだよこれ。うせえぜ。
What a dick.
ベアトリーチェの勝ち名乗りみたいなものだろうね。
It is checkmate for her.
くそ。
大方また怪しげな魔法陣でも出てくるのを期待してたんだろう。
魔法陣ではなかったけどね。想像は裏切られなかったよ。
どういう意味でしょう？自分の存在を誇示したいのでしょうか？
そう考えるのが妥当でしょう。この手紙で初めて私たちは昨夜の手紙の主が犯人であると理解できる。ここに書かれている内容よりも昨夜と同じ封筒でというところに意味があるものと思います。
封筒も風浪も間違いなく親方様が使われていたものです。
おお、もう私には何が何だか分かりませんよ。こんなことは後宮のお家にお仕えして以来初めてのことです。
昨日の手紙の言う通りならベアトリーチェは自称じい様の最古の腹心だ。じい様も常々そう口にしてたんですよね。
I directed the question to Genji and Kumasawa, who nodded together.
ってことはじい様の次に詳しいのは源氏さんと熊沢さんってことになる。
So the two of you knew more about this than anyone except grandfather.
話してくれないっすか？
Can you tell us?
私は長いことわざと耳にしなかった話です。
Can't ignore it anymore.
ですがこの後に及んではそうも言っていられません。
Just begging for your attention to acknowledge Beatrice.
源氏、知っている限りを話しなさい。
Genji-san didn't answer. Did he remain silent despite his knowledge? Or did he know nothing at all? Still, I had a good guess. The ghost story of the witch Beatrice had long been defied among the servants. He had probably been very close to grandfather too, and his occult hobbies. So there was a good chance that he had been indoctrinated with these weirder things and had increasingly come to defy the witch. As grandfather's most trusted servant who had sworn loyalty to him, he might have been the most influenced by the witch illusions and the grandfather had created. But there was only one reason for Genji-san to remain silent. He could say it, but it would definitely cause a backlash, so it was better if he had kept his mouth shut, and it wasn't like he would believe him anyway. Something along those lines. Only a short while ago, Maria had been more than willing to speak bluntly and unrestrainedly, and they had earned their scuffle with Jessica. It was natural for Genji-san to keep his silence. Mistress? His mistress? That could be possible. For ordinary people, polygamy isn't only viewed negatively with a moral perspective. It is also unmanageably financial situation. But that isn't the case for the very rich. It is possible for them to have another lover in addition to their real wife. We can't defy the possibility that grandfather had another woman in his life besides grandmother. Maybe.
ばあ様は生きてた頃、よく疑ってたらしいぜ。浮気相手がいるってな。私はてっきりそれはじい様の想像の中の魔女のことを指してるんだとばかり思ってたんだが。
That's what happens when you become a simp. The family must have secretly rich men then. Yeah.
そりゃなんとも面白い話になってきたぜ。
This is getting real interesting.
源氏さんは俺に言ったよな。ベアトリーチェはこの屋敷ができる以前からじい様に仕えてたって。
お屋敷が竣工したのは昭和27年と聞いています。
ってことはベアトリーチェという人は30年以上も昔からおじい様と連れ添っていたということになるね。
その30年前の愛人、もしくはその縁者や隠し子が何かの恨みがあって何らかの復讐を企んだ。なるほど。洋館ミステリーっぽいありがちなストーリーになってきたじゃねえか。
Oh man, it's almost like we're playing the Japanese equivalent of Clue.
汚らわしい話ですが、一番納得できる筋書きです。
Oh my gang.
どうですか、源氏。
My man ain't speaking shit. Yeah, like, you know what? I'm just gonna pretend I don't see any of this happening. You people are crazy.
おそらく親方様に恋愛の感情は終わりになられたでしょう。
Ah. Simp, man, simp.
亡くなられた奥様より愛しておられたに違いありません。
Damn, Beatrice showed her ankles once and grandfather was like, yo, you give me more of that, please.
ベアトリーチェってのは何者なんだよ。
Who's this bitch called Beatrice, man? What the fuck?
そして今はどうしてるんだ。
お屋敷ができるより前にお亡くなりになったと聞いています。
Ore?
すでに死んでいる？
She's already dead.
はい。
Yeah.
親方様は大層深く悲しまれ。
What are you saying that the killer could also be a ghost? How insane of...
ベアトリーチェ様を蘇らせる方法として黒魔術に傾倒なさっていったのです。親方様はベアトリーチェ様を心の底から愛しておられたのです。このような狂気に駆り立てるほどに。
As Genshi-san said this, he spread his arms, as though asking us to look at the room filled with the signs of grandfather's madness. We were well at a loss for words. Before this, his black magic hobby was nothing other than creepy, and we had found it impossible to understand what drove him to devote himself to it. Nobody had tried to understand Kizo dismissing as an eccentric who had restored the Yoshida-miya family amidst his madness. And that had been on grandfather's mind was the loss of a woman he loved. A love that could never be. And the sorrow of being unable to give up on her. Just a few moments ago, this room had seemed creepy, but in an instant everything about it started to make sense. The creepy books, the magic circles, the medicine, all of it. It all just because he wanted to revive once more the vision of a single woman who had left the world 30 long years ago. Don't be a simp, kids. This is what happens to you.
一度だけ深く酔われた親方様にベアトリーチェ様のお話を聞かされたことがあります。詳しいことは忘れてしまいましたが、それはもう女の私が聞いて羨むような深い深い愛情でございました。
金蔵さんは後宮家の当主を継いだ時、当時まだ生き残っていた後宮家の長老たちの意向で亡くなった奥さんとの結婚を決められたのです。
つまり後宮家にとって得になる女性との結婚を強制された。
So arranged marriage then.
さようです。
That is correct.
金蔵さんはお家復興のためだけに当主に据えられ、全ての重責を背負わされたのです。そんな金蔵さんがどこでどういう経緯でベアトリーチェと知り合ったのかは分かりかねます。
それ以上語るのは無粋だな。
Now, as a grandfather truly fell in love for the first time, how deep that affection must have been. It was easy to tell just by looking around us. His room was covered with piles and piles of things to do with the black magic. Grandfather would spend days after long days shut in here, immersed in all his research and isolated from the outside world, never taking a single day off. You couldn't help but realize how deep grandfather's love for Beatrice was.
私誤解してたよ、ケンジさん。
Yeah, but he was still a piece of shit.
何をでしょうか。
What might that be?
私、使用人の人たちが魔女を問診するのはじい様の気持ち悪い黒魔術趣味に感化されてるからじゃないかってずっと思ってきた。違ったんだな。
Perhaps they've been acting as though at least Beatrice's soul had been restored and existed inside this mansion in order to soothe grandfather's heart. With closed eyes and expression as though he remembered something from the distant past, Genji maintained the silence. He probably felt that to confess it would be to betray the one and only master of the serious way, even though that person was already dead. Beatrice has revived as a witch, and she is in the mansion even now. That was his mantra. Well, he had believed what had made others believe, and Genji would take that with him to the grave. That might have been the last servants he could offer his master. Legend of the Witch, mysterious tale of Rokenjima, it was still whispered amongst the servants. Its true nature was a sad lie. No, an act of kindness towards grandfather who had lost a person he loved above all else.
私はお父様の前で魔女を否定する話を何度か口にした覚えがあります。今ならそれがどれだけお父様を傷つけていたかわかります。
今の僕にならわかるよ。シャノンを蘇らせる方法が黒魔術だというなら、僕は今すぐにもこの部屋の次の主となって研究を始めるよ。
兄貴。
Haniki-kun. Another strand of tears dripped from George's eyes. Maybe it was infectious tears rose to Jessica's eyes too when she sniffled.
ベアトリーチェは言っていたよ。もうじき蘇ることができる。会うことができるって。
Very soon the door to the Golden Land would be opened. And in that promised land, the glitter's gold shall resurrect all the dead people's souls and revive the love that they possess as well. But is that really true? Now asleep in a world of peacefulness forevermore. Bruh, you're just promising heaven.
そう言ったのか。
Did she say that?
マリアに手紙を渡したベアトリーチェは。
信じないよね。
You don't believe, do you? What a baka. This baka doesn't believe in witches.
ここにじい様がいたならきっと喜んだろうな。もうじきベアトリーチェが蘇ることにさぞや踊り上がって喜んだろうな。なら俺は信じたぜ。じい様が半生をかけて研究したことで蘇り、愛した女の魂が蘇ったと信じて寿命を全うできるって言うんなら。
Okay, your little sob story made me believe in witches now. Yay!
バトラ。
バトラ。
一人の女性をずっと愛し続けた気持ちが周りにも伝わり真実となる。それを気遣いと呼べばそれまでだろうけれど、今の僕はあえてそれを魔法と呼んであげたいね。
気遣いじゃないよ。
This isn't consideration, you know.
本当に魔法だよ。
It be magic.
魔女だよ。やっぱり誰にもベアトリーチェの姿は見えないんだね。
Some time passed as we listened to the sound of rain. We considered that what kind of love and madness would have possessed the owner of this room. He has spent half his life here.
女の私から言えば、お父様の純愛の気持ちも少しは理解したいところですが、それではお母様の立つ瀬がありません。
同感だぜ。浮気は浮気。綺麗事にされちゃかなわねえよな。
それもそうだな。ばあさまが気の毒になっちまうぜ。
Poor grandmother got cooked.
それでベアトリーチェとおじい様の間に子供がいたなんて話はある？
The keyword Beatrice have been hid in every corner of the case, so it's natural to suspect every relative of Beatrice.
いえ、
No.
そのような話は聞いたことがありません。
仮にいたとしたら最愛の人の忘れがたみとしてきっと全ての愛情を注ぎ込んだだろうね。それがなく黒魔術に没頭していったなら子供はいなかったと考えるべきなのかな。
そういえばこんな噂を聞いたことがあるぜ。知ってるだろ？じいさまが福音の家っていう福祉施設に莫大な援助をしてるって話。
よしなさい。それはお父様を冒涜する中傷に過ぎません。
教えてくれよ、夏日おばさん。隠し事はなしなのはおばさんもだと思うっすよ。
くだらない話です。お父様はその施設に莫大な援助をし、社会勉強の一環として当家の使用人雇用枠を開放していました。それをお父様に汚らわしい趣味があると吹聴する愚か者がいたというだけの話です。
一時期それが黒魔術の生贄にするためだみたいな噂になってさ。
Found in Jelly Boodle all the Umineko images I had in my pooter back in 2009. Damn! Yeah, we're both ancient, man. We're hags.
実際いつもこの部屋で怪しげな実験や儀式を繰り返してたわけで、私も半分は信じてたところがあったぜ。
その福音の家出身の使用人ってのは？
何人かいますが、親族会議中のシフトではシャノンとカノンの2人でした。
To resurrect Beatrice, we had summoned servants from a welfare institute and sacrifices.
確かにじいさまが使用人として選ぶのはいつもシャノンやカノン君くらいの若い子ばかり。
Human sacrifices.
私だってじいさまには妙な趣味があるに違いないって信じてたぜ。
ジェシカ、言葉を慎みなさい。
When Anansi scolded her, the atmosphere instantly went sour and everyone fell quiet. Just when we were starting to feel all sentimental, now everything shifted. However, something was tugging at the back of my mind. Sacrifices. Sacrifices. sacrifices brought over from the gospel house. What is it? Freaky words like sacrifices doesn't pop up often. Yet, I've seen or heard that word somewhere recently. Some parts of my memory is tugging at me. Come on, Beatrice. What do you know? I have a right in the front of the portrait of Beatrice. It wasn't as vast as the one in the entrance hall, but that portrait, which must have been drawn by some famous painter, is still just as intimidating in the smaller size. Below it was likely an entrance hall that was the epitaph said to the point out of place where the gold was hidden.
生贄だ。
Sacrifices?
なんだよバトラ、急に気持ち悪いこと言うなよ。
生贄を6人。
Sacrifice the 6. Both of my eyes open as wide as plates. Right there. Everything I predicted since the very beginning. Everyone crowded around, and the same expression of terror rose to everyone's face. Yes, it was written in the epitaph. On the first twilight sacrifice of the 6 chosen by the key.
間違いない。
You mean we're the sacrifices?
最初に死んだのは6人だ。そしてシャッターに書かれた魔法陣じゃねえ、ヘブライ語でも生贄を捧げると書いてあった。
well、マリアは最初からそう言ってる。
None of you bitches even believe me! That's right. Maria said in the very beginning. Right after we found the 6 bodies, when Maria was in the parlor watching TV, she had said it. Oh. Killer's not human. Just the sacrifices chosen by the key.
これは黄金の隠し場所なんかじゃねえ。黒魔術か何かの復活の儀式の手順なんだ。
What?
確かこの碑文には大勢の死が必要になるはず。
確かにざっと読むだけでも 6+2+5 で13人は死ななくちゃならないことになってるぜ。
普段はこの島には何人いるんですか？
使用人のシフトにもよるでしょうが、お父様、夫に、私にジェシカ、そして使用人が 2、3人。昨日今日は5人いてもらってますが、普段はそこまでいません。
ってことはだ、この儀式を実行しようとしたら普段じゃ生贄が足らないってわけだ。いや違うぜ。じいさまは福音の家から不気味な儀式の生贄にするために使用人を取ったという噂。
つまりなんだよ。生贄の人数を増やすために使用人を増やし、さらに人数が集まる年に一度の親族会議はこの儀式を執り行える年にたった一度唯一のタイミングだったってことじゃねえか。
Jessica screamed as Maria broke out in a creepy laugh, looking truly pleased.
人は運気を試すためにある種の確率に願掛けをすることがない？
Like throwing a sandal and saying that if it lands right side up, tomorrow will be sunny. Or saying tomorrow will be a good day if a coin lands on heads. There are many little superstitions like that. If you're fed up with nothing is going right for you and you happen to roll some dice and get 3 6s, it will probably make you want to believe that it's a sign of some miracle. When flipping a sandal, you might have a worse 50-50 chance. Even if you're getting right side up, it's not worth much. But if you carelessly roll 3 dice and come up 6, you might think it's a small miracle.
魔術にもそういう考えはあるんだよ。限りなくありえない出目を期待してひたすらに祈祷を続ける。そうして蓄えられた祈祷の念は奇跡の出目が現れた時、魔力を持って具現化される。おじい様がしようとした魔術は多分そういうもの。 鍵が無作為に選ぶ生贄の抽選。それに万が一自分が当たることがないように、この島に最も人が多くなる日を選んで儀式を実行した。
バカバカしい。これらが全て怪しげな魔法の儀式の過程で起こった事件だと言い出すのですか。
Natsu, he yelled. She couldn't stop thinking fearfully about how could she have been protected just because of the scorpion charm. If it hadn't received that charm from Jessica and hung on the doorknob, would I have been killed by one of those 6? And the strangest part is, even though I hung the charm from inside of my door, they couldn't get through the door. The killer had noticed the charm from the outside and had given up trying to open the door. A human couldn't have perceived that. A charm meant to stop someone from who was not human had done just that. Possible. Possible. Impossible.
だが夏日さん、確かに碑文の内容はその後をなぞっとる。
第二の晩に残されし者は寄り添う二人を引き裂け。
On the second twilight, those who remain shall tear apart the two who are close.
これはエヴァ様たちのことを指しているのでしょうか。
悔しいけど、そうだと判断せざるを得ない。
Painful as it may be, we must have reached that conclusion.
そして母さんたちを殺した犯人は続く第三の晩の言葉を手紙に書き、その場に
そうだな。第2の晩を実行し、第3の晩をその場に残した。第3の晩はまさにさっき夏日おばさんが読んだ通りだぜ。
On the third twilight, those who remain shall praise my noble name. Ah, now I read it, it just keeps going on, doesn't it? On the fourth twilight, gouge the head and kill. Gouge the head and kill. So Janiki's parents were killed with the demon's ice picks gouged into their heads. But if that counts as the second twilight, someone else must have been gouged in the head. Grandfather.
じい様だ。焼却炉の中で焼かれてたから、そっちに目がいっちまって気づかなかったが、じい様も眉間に、いや、頭をえぐられてた。
じい様が第4の晩の犠牲者。じゃあカノン君は
第5の晩に胸をえぐりて殺せ。カノン君については犯人との突発的な遭遇による犯行だと思ってたけど、違う。誰か一人をおびき出し胸を貫くことを初めから狙っていたんだ。
もし犯人がこれをなぞっているとしたなら、また3人が死ななければならないというのですか。
On the sixth twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the seventh twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the eighth twilight, gouge the leg and kill.
確かにそう読み取れますけど。
Hello, Jesu no Kolo. Yes, Umineko mentioned. Umineko, more like peak mentioned. Oh no, these killings weren't coincidental at all. They're intentional.
いや、そいつはどうかな。あと3人が死ねば第9の晩になる。見てみろよ。
On the ninth twilight, the witch revives and none shall be left alive.
私たちはベアトリーチェにみんな殺される。
I love this story too. I've read it the whole way through like a decade ago, so this is just a revisit, but incredibly slow burn. Because it is a lot to read. But, you know, I still thoroughly enjoy it.
わけがわかんねえ。結局何人いようが最後には全員死ぬってことじゃねえか。じい様は何が持ってきたったんだ。
His goal was witch feet picks.
この儀式じゃ じい様自身何をどうしたって生き残れねえじゃないか。
No, it's okay. It's like what Mario said. He'll be revived anyway. It's gonna be Daijobu.
誰も生き残れなくていいんだよ。第10の晩には黄金鏡にたどり着く。
On the 10th twilight, the journey ends, and you shall reach the home of the gold, which shall praise the wise and bestow 4 treasures.
おじい様は死を恐れてなんかいなかったんだよ。ほら、4つの宝の2番と3番を見てごらんよ。
Yes, look at Beatrice's sub rewards.
一つは全ての死者の魂を蘇らせ、一つは失った愛すらも蘇らせる。つまりおじい様は自分がこの儀式の途中で死んでしまってもやがては復活できると信じてた。
バカバカしいぜ、妄言だぜ。死んだらそれまでだろ。
Hey man, this is what happens when you simp. You get put in this situation.
死者は生き返らない。
Remember, people die when they're killed.
人類が何千年もかけて追い求め、結局は未だに成し遂げられない奇跡だぜ。つまりこういうことだろ。死後の世界で再会できて蘇ることができるとか、そういう類だろ。
ジェシカの言い分通りだとするなら、こいつはつまり老い先短いじい様が恋に狂っての自殺まがい。いや、壮大な無理心中ってことなのか。
My man's still saying silence. It's like I'm clocking out.
ケンジ、
Genji, you knew, you piece of shit, you knew.
その可能性は考えられるのですか？
わかりません。親方様は時に1000年の未来を見越されるほどの聡明なお方です。しかし凡庸な私にはそれが狂気としか映らないこともあります。
それってイエスって意味だよな。
Does that mean yes?
熊沢さんはどうなんだよ。
私は何も知りません。知りませんとも。知っていたなら今日この島にいると思いますか？
She just wanted her paycheck, that's all.
仮病でも何でも使ってお休みしていますよ。
おじい様の長年の友人である南條先生のご意見は？
源氏さんに同じです。金蔵さんは凡人をはるかに超越した方だった。そこにある種の人間離れした力すらも感じることはありました。私にも金蔵さんが何を考えてこの碑文を残されたのかわからない。
一つだけ言えるのは、仮にこの筋書きを作ったのがお父様であっても実行しているのは別の人間だということです。
確かに。少なくともじい様とカノン君を襲った犯人は他にいる。しかもそいつはこの碑文通りまだ事件を続けようとしている。
僕たちが深く考えなかった最初の手紙、あれには何て書いてあっただろう。
We thought back at the recitation of the letter last night. Beatrice had proclaimed something inside the letter. She had proclaimed that in accordance to her contract with Kinzo, she would collect everything the Yoshida family's interest. But then she had also revealed a special clause. Someone discovered the location of the gold and If the gold grandfather had hidden, the right would be lost. And at that time, the letter had been read. Grandfather was still alive. But at the time, it had already been sealed with wax by the head's ring. Which meant that grandfather had handed the ring over to Beatrice while he was still alive. If you think about this straightforwardly, we should probably take it to that mean that Beatrice is carrying out the strange contract that father is securing her that right. Simply put, it was the same as saying that grandfather knew of and approved of the contents of the letter. In other words, it's as though it's a joint message from Beatrice and grandfather, telling us that Beatrice will start collecting interest if we don't solve the riddle. In short, grandfather and Beatrice were telling us to solve the riddle of the epitaph. If we couldn't, then we're saying that we would kill us all, following the procedure of the epitaph. What meaning is there to that? What do they want? I don't have a clue what it means.
ほら、ベアトリーチェからまた手紙だよ。
え？
なんだって？
Mari was pointing at the top of the table with the canned food that everyone has been eating now still lay. Wizard's envelope was sitting there, but so what? Nani? Nancy let out a hysterical cry, looking between her own hand and the table, because the envelope that she had opened was still grasped in her hand. And despite that, there's an envelope on the table. How did that get there?
どういうことだよ、マリア。その封筒はどこから出てきたんだ。
It's magic.
今見たら置いてあった。
That's not a lie, it was lying there, man. Use your eyes, nerd. Oh.
私は何も知りませんよ。何も。
Oh no, everyone's gonna go into hysterics again.
冗談じゃねえ。ここには俺たち8人しかいねえんだぞ。
Beatrice is just crawling on the ceiling. It's like, let me just drop this letter on you. Bye.
9人目がこっそり忍び込んでいたなんてこともあるわけがね。俺たちがちょいと肖像画の前に集まっていたわずかの隙しかないんだぞ。
Get a clue.
全員下がりなさい。
Get back, all of you. Oh, here comes the psychosis.
壁へ下がりなさい。
Nazi was pointing the rifle at Genji and the others, bellowing at them. Genji was overpowered, his face looking at like he didn't have a clue what was going on. Of course, I felt the same, but a few moments later, I reached the same conclusion on Nazi he had. Just a few seconds ago, there was no letter like this on the table. And nobody had entered this room. Nani sore wa? That means someone among us had placed it during the few seconds that everyone was looking away, preoccupied with the portrait.
バトラ君、この封筒を開けて中身を読んで。
That's a Quinn. Picked up the envelope. It was still sealed with wax. Even without disturbing its contents, I realized that this was an unopened envelope with unknown envelope. Without relying on the letter opener, I violently tore it open and pulled out the letter inside. The contents were as follows.
金蔵様の碑文の謎をお楽しみいただいているでしょうか。
Beatrice! Mommy, let me see your face. Stop edging me. Are you enjoying the riddle of Kinzo-san's epitaph?
すでにご存知と思いますが、皆様方には時間が多くは残されてはおりません。
As you're all probably aware, you have very little time remaining.
どうか嵐が過ぎ去れば逃げ出すことができるという甘えをお捨てくださいませ。
Please abandon your naive hopes of escaping after the storm passes.
このゲームには私と皆様方のどちらが勝つかの結果しかない。
This game can only end with my victory or yours.
時間切れは私の勝ちとなる。
When time runs out, I will win by default.
引き分けはありません。
There will be no ties.
そこをどうか誤解なきよう
お願い申し上げます。
Make sure that you do not misunderstand your current situation.
って内容だぜ。
That's what it says.
この手紙を誰が置いたかは明白ではありません。ですが疑わしき人物を絞ることはできました。あなたたちです。
It's all of you.
奥様、それはあんまりにございます。
私は肖像画の前に行く直前、ここに缶詰を置きました。その時このような怪しげな手紙は決して置かれていなかったことを確認しています。
あなたたちです。
そしてその時すでにジェシカとジョージ君、バトラ君は肖像画の前にいた。そして彼らはこの手紙が現れるまで肖像画の前を離れていない。
Oh, sorry. No, exit. Okay.
つまりあなたたち4人の中にその手紙を置いた人物がいる。ベアトリーチェがいる。
おお、
Hello.
ベアトリーチェはマリアたちじゃない。ベアトリーチェはいるもん。
お黙りなさい。あなたたちの中の一人が疑わしいのか全員が疑わしいのか分かりません。しかし確実にあなたたちの中に犯人が混じっている。
そうだぜ。19人目なんかいるわけがない。魔女なんかいるわけがないんだ。カノン君を殺したのだって。そうさ、熊沢さんなら説明できるよ。熊沢さんは本当はカノン君と一緒にボイラー室に入り殺したんだ。
But she's a frail old woman. How can she?
そして後から来たらもう倒れていたと嘘をついた。
誤解です、お嬢様。私がなぜそのようなことを。
母さんたちをどうやってあの密室で殺したのかは見当もつかない。でも母さんたちが殺された時、使用人の人たち以外の全員にはアリバイがあった。なかったのは使用人の人たちだけ。でも本当に疑ってもいいんだろうか。
確かにそれを言い出したら全ての件でアリバイはないが。
Should we really be so quick to make that judgment? But this time, in this room, in this place, in this moment, in this minimally small bit of time and space, it's obvious. One of the four of them could have set the letter there in our blind spot. We can't tell who put it there, but it's obvious that one of the four did.
夏井さん、どうか落ち着きなさい。今日一日いろいろなことがあった。心が参っているのはよくわかります。
南條先生をお疑い申し上げるのは非常に心苦しいです。ですがお父様の主治医として唯一無二の親友として長くお父様と共にあられた。ベアトリーチェのことも知っているかもしれない。何かの古いしがらみを知っていて隠しているのではありませんか。
そんなはずはない。落ち着きなさい。
It was pitiful to watch Dr. Nancho frantically pleading his innocence. It was probably a normal reaction that anyone could have given if they were suspected. Kumasawa was the same. Since Jessica had stated suspecting her in the murder of Kanon, she was now truly flustered. That was why Genji stayed calm. Appearance looked so bold, and Natsuki pointed the barrel of the gun.
源氏、あなたはお父様の一番の部下です。ベアトリーチェとはあなたがお父様に見せた幻想で、あなたこそがその実行者だったのではないのですか。
そうお疑いいただけるのは奥様が私を親方様の一番のしもべだとお認めいただけたということで、このような場ではありますがとても名誉なことだと存じます。しかし この手紙を置いたのは私ではありません。
それを私が鵜呑みにできると思いますか？お前が首謀者に決まっています。あるいは熊沢も南條先生もその共犯かもしれない。マリアちゃんもです。
Yeah, suspecting Maria too. Well, then again, it's kind of obvious. No content to doubt, just the adults, and that's who you pointed the gun relentlessly at Maria too. But Maria acted as if though nothing had happened. Or maybe she thought she would be fine even if she was shot.
マリアちゃん、今この場ではもう幼いから疑いの枠から外すという段階にない。
Killed a child. How dare her autism be so peaked? Maria-chan, by this point we can no longer remove someone from suspicion just because you were young.
誰もが昨夜からずっと持ってきた疑問をもう一度ぶつけさせてもらいます。昨日バラ庭園であなたに手紙を渡したベアトリーチェは誰です？
Hello?
マリア、ごまかすんじゃねえぜ。この際はっきりさせろ。お前に手紙を渡したのは誰なんだよ。
だから何度も言ってるよ。ベアトリーチェだよ。1000年を生きる黄金の魔女なんだよ。姿を知りたければ後ろを振り返ればいい。ほら、そこにいるよ、ベアトリーチェが。
バカにしてんのかってめえ。
よせジェシカ、マリアもよせ。状況が分かってんのか。そんなこと言って何になるってんだ。無意味な挑発はよしやがるってんだ。
マリアには分かんないよ。バトラたちは誰が犯人ならいいの？自分たちの中に犯人がいると信じたくない時だけベアトリーチェを信じて、親しい人を殺された恨みを晴らしたい時だけ暴力をぶつけられる人間の犯人を信じたがってベアトリーチェを否定する。だから見えないんだよ。ベアトリーチェはいる。お前たちには見えない。
黙りなさい。あなたが犯人だと決めつけたくはありませんが、この状況を不愉快にさせて楽しんでいる利的行為者であることはもはや疑いの余地もありません。
ならどうするの？マリアを撃つ？別にいいよ。もうすぐ黄金鏡の扉が開かれる。そして全ての死者がよみがえる。今や死は恐れるべきことではないんだよ。
母さん、やっぱりこいつは怪しいよ。一緒になんかいられないよ。
でも夏日おばさん、どうか落ち着いて。マリアちゃんを撃つ理由は何もない。どうか冷静に。手紙は挑発するけど何も恐れることはない。犯人だって明日が怖いんだ。警察が怖いんだ。この島は今無秩序に支配されているけれど、それは台風で隔離されているからだけに過ぎない。台風が過ぎれば秩序が戻ってくる。だからおばさん、撃っちゃいけない。
なんで調子兄さんはそんなにも冷静なんだよ。この4人の中に犯人がいる。
All this family has been doing is so much infighting.
いや、あるいは4人が全員来るかもしれない。この中にエヴァおばさんたちを殺した犯人がいるかもしれないってのに、なんでそんなに冷静なんだよ。
僕だって犯人を見つけて殺してやりたい気持ちはあるさ。
You're like a real life family.
でもそれは単なる蛮行だ。僕は罪の裁きを秩序に任せる。だからどんなに疑わしくても引き金を引いてはいけないんだ。
ジョージの兄貴に同じだ。夏日おばさん、ここはちょいと冷静になろうぜ。とにかく撃つのはまずいぜ。こういう時はよ、頭を後ろに反らしてクールになれって3回唱えるといいらしいぜ。
はっきりさせておきます。魔女などいない。ここは六軒島で、ここは後宮家の本家屋敷です。後宮家代表、後宮夏日として宣言します。ここには魔女などいない。ベアトリーチェなど認めない。
Big mistake.
何を企もうとも 娘たちには指一本触れさせない。それが母としての、当家代表としての務めです。
Those words were the final words of farewell that settled everything. Protect her daughter, Anatsi would regard any suspicious person as an enemy. The only reason George Aniki and I were still standing on this side was because, by coincidence, we had a clear alibi regarding the letter. If I hadn't approached the portrait, I too may have been at the other end of that gun barrel, treated like a criminal. But even though part of me thought that, part of me was thinking that chasing all of the suspicious people from this room would finally guarantee our safety. Genji-san, Kumasawa-san, Dr. Nanjo, and all of them were all grandfather's side. You could even say that Maria was on grandfather's side since she had a blind belief in Beatrice. That's right, they're all suspicious. But is this really alright? Is it really alright for us to fight back against the lawlessness of the witch by throwing all out of suspicious, one without due process? The plot thickens. Anasi then told me to leave with her own words. But with wordless pressure, she was inducing them to say that themselves. So if Dr. Nancho hadn't said those words, this cold silence would surely have continued forever.
落ち着きなさい、ナスヒさん。だが気持ちはよくわかる。わしだって今朝からの異常な事件続きで頭がどうかなってしまいそうだ。だからわしらを疑いたい気持ちもよくわかる。
もし本当に南條先生が無関係なら、私は無礼極まりないことをしているのだと思います。ですが、今だけは分かってください。
分かった。わしらは部屋を出ましょう。どうですかな、源氏さん。客間に戻ってチェスの続きといきませんかな。
それをお望みでしたらぜひ。
私は嫌ですよ。だってこの中に狼がいると分かってて部屋から追い出されてしまうんですよ。嫌ですよ、奥様。どうかお許しください。
What Kumasawa was trying to say made total sense. If she was innocent, then she was being ejected into a dangerous territory along with the culprit. In the culprit's situation, pressing her to leave this room along with the suspect was almost exactly the same as letting her get killed. However, Kumasawa-san was really suspicious just for being the first to discover that Kanon-kun had been murdered. At that time, everyone except Kumasawa-san had an alibi. As long as the use of some trick of the existence of the 19th person could not be established, Kumasawa-san was most likely suspect by far. I don't want to believe it. However, Anatsuki and the rest of us were in such a difficult situation that we couldn't help but doubting any of them, Kumasawa-san included. So he didn't say anything to Satan and Anatsuki, even trying to oppressively chase them from their room. We had stopped her from shooting, but when it came to exiling them from their room, he was passively agreeing. Mari spoke to the still fretful Kumasawa-san.
大丈夫だよ。ベアトリーチェは敬う人には優しいから。熊沢さんはベアトリーチェがいるって信じてるもん。だからきっと大丈夫だよ。マリアは客間でテレビを見るよ。一緒に見ようよ。ここテレビがなくてつまんないもん。
It looked like Kumasawa found Maria's roguish laugh very frightening. However, the three other people had agreed to leave the room. Kumasawa couldn't fight the flow and had to agree, crying as she left the room.
それでは夏日さん。
I think I'm gonna stop it right here. We have gone pretty extensively long, 2 hours and 30 minutes. I will most likely revisit this again within the coming few days or the coming week, whichever. Yeah. So, once again, like to thank everyone, those lurking and those active, for coming by to watch me revisit Umineko again. Whew, it is nice to revisit, but I know it's gonna be quite the mountain to cross just to, you know, get to the more exciting parts. But still, I enjoyed it, so no complaints from me. I'm glad that the heightened tension is getting interesting. So, I will see you again tomorrow for the PvP Cancer Cup on Uma Musume. Yes, Lanka, I want to see them so bad. I want to see Birkenstall, my wife. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. Soon. Soon. I think we're already almost done with this first chapter anyway. So yeah. I'll see you guys tomorrow. On Twitch, same time, most likely. So yeah. Bye everyone. Let me see, double check if anyone is streaming, if I want to raid them. Well, no, not really. But either way, I'm gonna go rest now. Love you. Take care. Take care, Lanka. Goodbye. See you, everyone.